Hey everyone, today I'm going to show the process of taking off and putting back on new grip tape for your handlebars. So I like using Wilson cushioned tape. It's thick. It's got this cushion on the bottom, so you get, and it's more rubbery. You get a nice firm grasp on it. There's two types of tape. There's the thick stuff, the cushion, and then there's this regular. This is by Head. I haven't found a cushion for them, but it's really thin. Come on, focus. Focus. It's quite thin compared to this stuff. I like the cushioned. It lasts a lot longer. So this is some baseball bat tape I ordered off of Amazon by Alien, I think. Something like that. It's been on here a while. It's been on my wrap side. But it's about done. Water gets under there and it can start to separate. So I'm going to go through the process of taking her all off and putting new stuff on. You need a knife. Trusty old Milwaukee. You'll just cut it off. You find the tape spot in the seam, you can just unwind it. Tip of my knife is dull, so I'll probably just have to unwind it. Other things you'll need: electrical tape, and at least, so this stuff is, what is it? It's all in non-English. Doesn't tell you how long it is. I think it's either 3 feet or 6 feet. I think it's 3 feet. So you're just gonna take 4 of them to do the full handle. This side, I think it only takes 1.5. I'm gonna run it actually lower. I like putting tape on the steel part as well, just because you get grip if you need to, for some reason, hold down here, which I never really do. But if you put tape on the steel down here, you can keep the paint on your saw longer. It doesn't look so beat up. Keeping a good looking saw for resale value is a good feature in the future if you happen to get rid of your saw. So, got this off. I just went through my stash and I have noticed I only have 3 of the cushioned tapes, and I want to redo the main handle. It's not quite there, but it's starting to get fuzzy, so I'm just going to do it. But I want all 3 of these because I'm going to go down that handle farther, and I want to have that tape. So I am going to use the thin stuff on this side and see if I can deal with it. I've got one unwrapped already. So it's got an angled edge, so when you start the wrap, it doesn't kink. I want to go from the top or the bottom. So what you do is you pull it over, and then you pull it nice and snug. If I can get it in the camera here. Not really working out. In fact, keeping the barn on would be better. So you pull it nice and snug, and then you just run it down. And I do a half overlap. Now, I start from the top on this handle because I want the seam that's exposed, because as you come over, you're going to have where the last one left off, and I want to be able to slide my hand back without catching the little ribs, because once it wears, you'll start catching more ribs. So I want my handle to slide off over those bumps smoothly and not catch anything. So I start from the top down on this one. This tape doesn't last as long, and I'll probably regret putting this on after it's all said and done, but I thought I had more tape than I did. So you want to make sure it's nice and snug, because in the rain, if this is loose and it gets wet, it'll work the tape, it'll separate the tape. You want it nice and snug. Not too snug, because then it'll tear, but snug enough. And the more you overlap it, the thicker it'll be for this thin stuff. For this thick stuff, I only have to do half. I did the same thing, half overlap, and it's a nice wrap. So once you get down to where it ends, you have to have another tape. I'm going to pause the video, unwrap the other tape, and then get back to this part. Otherwise, it's just going to be a fumble. Wait 1 second. Okay, I have a tape. This is the unwrapping process. It's got this little band around it, which is sticky. This is what they want you to, on your tennis racket. That's the tape part, because this does not have, it's tape, but it's not sticky. It's just rubber. And it's got this plastic liner on the back. You separate it. I did find some stuff once upon a time that did have sticky on one side, but it was only a one-time deal. I never found it again. And there's a little tab here that does have a little bit of a sticky part on it to help stick it to what you're starting to wrap. Okay, so back to where we were. You retighten that piece. You wrap it down. If you don't kind of evenly wrap it, there will be a bit of a bump on this part where you connect both of the pieces, which I'm fine with because it's not terribly thick, so it doesn't matter. So I start up a little higher and start the process over. Connect it, stretch it tight, and continue the wrap. Now, it'd be cool if this stuff was in like a spoolie roll so you could just unwind it as you go, but it's not. So you have to pull the tail through every time you do this, which it gets easier the farther down you go. So another reason, well, not another reason. So with the electrical tape, once you get down lower over here, this is easy to get nicked up, and the electrical tape is more of a sturdy, heavier duty appliance, and once you scratch this, you'll have to replace that portion of it. So the electrical tape, if I scratch it up down here where the saw will touch the ground, I just pull that tape off if this wrapping is still good, and then I just redo the tape and bundle it back up. It's really easy. Oh, this is going to be plenty. Now I got it nice down on the corner. Get my electrical tape. It'd really be nice to have like 4 arms doing this. 2 for holding, 2 for wrapping, applying the tape, so on and so forth. Okay, you hook it underneath. And you give it a good healthy amount of wraps. And make sure this tape is tight too. And don't kink it, because if you kink it, water can get under it and it'll mess up the glue. If you do kink it, just wrap over that portion a few times. The tape, if you have it in a spot where your hands are wearing, it will want to unwind there. So make sure that you've got it pulled nice and tight as you snap it off, and it'll suck into itself. And it'll hold on a lot better. If you just kind of like wrap it around and just put it on there, it's not near as good of a hold. Okay, so this side's done. Another reason why I like this cushion tape, I don't like the size of the handlebar in stock form. It's too small for my big hands. It's like, my hands are big. It's like 10 and a half inches from pinky to thumb. So I like a little bit of a thicker handle. And with this cushion tape, I can obtain that. Oh, what I'm going to do while I'm here, before I forget, is along with the electrical tape, I like to run this orange duct tape. I'll get it undone here. This stuff isn't as thick as the gray tape. This is the thinner stuff. But I like having these little visible corners on my saw for no reason. Just I like it. It's kind of like a signature look amongst the other saws that are in the bed of the truck that are somebody else's. So I'll just run the duct tape around it, and it's a little thicker protection for the electrical tape. I don't care if this kinks because it's just going to get worn off and replaced anyway. And besides, that kink is some grip. It's not going to go on evenly anyway because the bar is uneven where the other seams are. So I just kind of kink that one and roll it around. So that's going to guard the seam of the electrical tape, which is going to guard the rubber. Now, if you wanted the steel part, which I wrapped, you want that thicker, you just double your wraps to make it the same width as the side handle, which I don't find necessary because I just don't. All right, we'll go to this side. Now you're going to be visualizing this the same way I'm seeing it, so it should be easier. If the camera is flipped, I'll flip it back so you're seeing it how I would do it. Hopefully that'll help with my rights are lefts and my lefts are rights. I lost my shop towel. You want to make sure it's dry at least. The stuff holds on really good once it's pulled tight, but dry and clean is preferable. So for this handle, I'm also going to start from the top, which means the ribs are going to go against a slide this way. I like that because that's the most angle of the most position of grip that I'm going to need. So these ribs coming down this way, you see when they wear out, they'll start to fuzz. That's okay because that adds gripping power to my saw. If it's the other way, when I come up, it's usually a faster way as I slide it this way. I normally don't slide it down that way. I kind of just flick it. So I guess it's just a personal preference. It doesn't matter which way you put the seam, the edge of the wrap. The cushion stuff doesn't wrap as tight because it's thicker. It's kind of beveled. So you get the thin part in the middle, and then the edges are a little thinner, so when you pull it down, it doesn't leave a real bumpy line. It's more make a smooth handle, but bumps are kind of the point. You just don't want uncomfortable bumps because uncomfortable bumps will cause blistering. So like right here, when the seam comes together, it's a bit of a bump because the two layers of cushion tape make it a lot thicker than this thinner tape. This thin stuff is still, you can squeeze it and you can feel that it's got some cush to it, but it's not near as much as the big stuff. The big stuff, the cushioned, the big stuff. This stuff is like $4 a roll. It's not cheap, but it's worth it. It's very well worth it. There's nothing worse than, like today, the reason why I'm not out cutting is because the wind was blowing 40, 50 miles an hour, which killed cutting production. But if we were able to work, 2 inches of rain's supposed to fall today. And this bare stock handle, it's just a slip and slide. I guess I did get away with 2 wraps on that, 2 rolls of it, so I actually could have put some cushioned on the other side, but that's okay. I could have gone longer on this, but I think this one's been on here for, I don't know if I've wrapped this one twice or not. This might be the original wrap, which this saw is now a year old. So you'll get at least at least 3 months, 4 months of everyday use. If you're not like trashing your saws by rolling them around upside down on the handlebars in the bed of the truck, banging off of chainsaw chains or something. If it's just your hand on a cotton glove, the stuff, because you know it's thick. It's not paper thin, so it does hold up for quite a while. But where you're grasping along the top here, that's where it starts to wear. This is actually taking longer to come off because it's sticking really well. I know, somebody's going to be like, boring, why don't you just show us when you were done? Well, I said this is the entire process, so you can either fast forward the video or, I guess, move along if you're not interested. Now, this gluey stuff down there, you could wipe it off if you want to, or you could just leave it on and have extra grip. It's up to you. This is how I do it, not how it should be done. There's no right or wrong way. It's all personal preference. I really don't know anybody else that wraps their handles. There might be a couple guys now doing it that actually like it. It feels good. Lots more grip. So the less you have to squeeze your saw, the less fatiguing you're going to be through the day. If you just have to have a death grip on this thing because it's slippery, it's raining, there's water everywhere, your gloves are soaked, that will cause arm pump, muscle fatigue, cramps when you're done, or during, depending. So you will notice a lot less fatigue in your arms and through the overall day if you wrap your handlebars. It really does make a difference. When I first started doing it years ago, I noticed right away that my arms weren't so sore after my shift was up. So this stuff is a bit different. It still has the beveled edge, but in this case it has this line underneath which is semi-sticky. When I said that I couldn't find the sticky stuff before, I meant that on the smaller tape. This stuff does have stick to it, so you gotta put it down in the right spot initially, but it's not a big deal if you have to redo. So on the 500i, it's got this weird, out of frame, sorry about that. It's got this weird plastic knuckle up here. I just wrap over it. You could wrap all the way across if you wanted to, but it's not necessary. Like if you used a thinner tape, you probably could. But I just wrap right in front of it because you're not really going to feel this portion very much. So I just get on over it. I could go farther maybe. I'm not gonna. So you do one solid wrap over the thinner part, and then you start to angle it out. Of course, you have to pull this long tail. So I do, again, I basically line up the sticky spot to the edge of the previous wrap, and that's as much overlap that works. It's not a complete science, so if you don't want to do that much, you don't have to, but that's what I found is half over. If it gets water underneath it, and it won't slip off, because moisture will go underneath it in a rainy day, or if you leave your saw out in the back of your truck or whatever. It's not waterproofing, but it is. You will maintain the grip as long as it's tight. Stuff slightly is kinking on the back. It's not wanting to wrap around very well. It might be because I put that on backwards. I wonder if that's what I did. I might have lined up the wrong way. I might supposed to be wrapping counterclockwise versus clockwise. I'm going to pause real quick and disassemble this and see if I did it wrong. It's been a while since I've wrapped a handle. Okay, I took it apart, and as you can see, I did do it wrong. So the bend is supposed to be this direction, so it starts, once it starts going, the fold will keep you from wrinkling your wraps. sticky stuff is wore off, but oh well. I was getting a kink in the wrap, and now I'm not. So it is important to make sure you've got that angled starter tip going the right direction, otherwise you'll get a bubble on the back side of your wrap where it's kinking. And you don't want unnecessary bubbles, because that means you got a rub spot. It's just like having a bubble in your glove. It will cause a blister or whatever. And if you overlap it too much, you'll also get the same effect. It'll start balling up. So there is a fine line between where you pull the fold over. After you get a couple rolls into it, you'll feel where it is. The cool stuff, the part about this stuff is it'll stick in that spot, so you can grab your other roll and get started on it. The thinner stuff, it's a pain because once you let it go, it's going to want to unravel. This is a little bit of a timely process. You're coiling on, if you do 4 of these, you know, it's 12 feet worth of wrap. So now I'm starting this one. It's coming around this direction. I try to get it down on the flat so I can go over what I've already wrapped. And then just make sure there's not a seam back here, because if there is, which I have, I overlapped too much, you will get water buildup in there and it'll want to come off. So where they connect, you might get a little bit of a bigger bubble on your handlebar, but it's not terribly noticeable, and you'll get used to it pretty quickly. Usually it stops like down in here. If you don't stretch it tight enough, he'll stop way short. You gotta make sure and pull it tight as you go down it. Otherwise, you end up with your tape, or you hold on the saw quite a lot, and it'll be slippery anyway, and this will be pointless. This gets a little fatiguing because you're basically trying to stretch rubber. I thought about trying getting a bike tube and wrapping it around, cutting it thin like this and trying it, but I haven't done it yet. This is pretty convenient, so, and it's got a nice cush to it. So 2 of those 3-footers, 6 feet will get you right to the edge of your plastic pretty much. I want to go a little more, but I'm actually going to use the thin stuff because that's going to get beat up and I don't want the whole thing to uncoil. So I'm going to use the thinner tape down on the bottom. I normally don't wrap down here lower, but I occasionally have my hands under here at some odd angle, so I'm going to go lower this time. So I'm just going to use the thinner stuff and wrap it like twice. I don't know if I even want to film that because, well, why not? Why not just do it? You guys are in for the long haul on this one. Okay, back under. I'm going to start up higher here so I get a good wrap over this seam. Since this stuff is thin, it doesn't hurt to go like double over it, which is what I'm probably going to do. I'm probably just going to give it enough space to go down slowly, but it's kind of just doubling it up. That way I'll have a little bit thicker cushion down here, and I won't have to cut the tape off. Well, that's a big deal, but faster. Some of the tapes, like this head stuff, it's not as sturdy as that Alien that I bought off of Amazon. But the Amazon stuff is a little more expensive than locally. So I just keep getting the local stuff. You can get it at any sports store. I don't know which brand they might have. That's what happens if you let it go. It unfoils. But I usually get this stuff at Walmart because it's the cheapest. And I'm going to buy like 5 packs at a time. Sporting goods stores, any of them will have it. They'll have the different brands or whatever. So you can get whatever brand you want. I look for the cushioned. The cushioned is the way to go. Now the thin stuff here, it is the worst on slipping if you don't get it tight. You've got to get the thin stuff tight if you decide to try that stuff first. It comes in a pack of 3. If you don't get that tight, it'll wobble on you the first day and it'll start to slip around. So be sure and tug it real tight as you're wrapping it. Get the electrical tape around there. Good few wraps. This part of the handlebar touches the ground more than the other side. So a good few wrappings is the way to go here. And then I'll cover it with some duct tape, just for kicks and giggles. It is nice to be able to spot your saw at all different angles. And it looks cool if I'm running the complete black saw, but I'm not running that right now, so I got a stock hood on here. But if you tape the bars, your plastic won't chip off. Alright, so there it is, 500i, fresh wrapped up, ready to go to work again whenever the weather lets up. It's got a nice feel. For guys with smaller hands, you might want to try the thin tape first, just to see if, because you're going to notice that it feels different because it will be thicker with the thin stuff. And with the cushion stuff, it's going to be even thicker yet. It's not uncomfortably thick, but you will notice it. If you don't like that, try the thinner stuff first. If you don't mind a little thicker, give that a shot. Now, if you've seen my handle grip, I also put a rubberized grip tape on here. This is my biggest peeve. Like the Husqvarna 572, it's got a rubber piece on the backside. Kind of, it's more of like a rubbery plastic, and that grips one side of your hand. The steels do not, and this gets polished and buffed, and it just gets super smooth and slick. So I cut these strips out of a rubberized grip tape. I think 3mm makes it, and I just cut it down to thin strips and I stick it on there, clean the handle up real good. I usually do it when the saw's new. This has been on there the life of the saw so far, so this has been on a year. It sticks on there really good, and I just shave the edges down if they start to peel, so it bevels the edge down and it makes it thin, so you're not as likely to roll up the edge. It also helps with traction. So the more traction you have on the handle, the throttle handle and the handlebar, the less fatiguing you'll have in your day of cutting. So there it is. A little boring, I'm sure, for some of you, but you know, that's saw maintenance. Alrighty, you all have a good one. Over and out. See you on the next one.